Saudi Arabia, a land known for its strict rules for women, from covering their bodies to not being allowed to drive, to travel restrictions. These rules may seem suffocating to outsiders, but have you ever wondered what life is really like for women here? Hidden behind the traditional headscarf are the lives of women who can only stay silent when their husbands cheat, are restricted from using their phones, or are not allowed to participate in sports. Are their lives just full of restrictions? Or is there something else hidden that we have never imagined? If you are curious to know the truth, follow along right away. We will reveal 15 interesting secrets about Saudi Arabian women, things that will make you surprised and give you a new perspective on this unique culture. Number 15. Harassed women become criminals. You may find it hard to believe, but in Saudi Arabia, women can be imprisoned if they are victims of harassment. This is not a mistake or a misunderstanding, but a harsh reality that women in this country face every day. This situation shows the lack of basic freedoms and protections that they suffer and really makes you think about the injustice in that society. In Saudi Arabia, women cannot move freely without the permission of a male guardian, which can be a father, husband, or even a son. They need a man's consent to do basic things like traveling, going to work, or even seeing a doctor. In some places, women cannot enter a store or make transactions without a man accompanying them. Not only that, women in Saudi Arabia cannot open a bank account without the approval of their mahram, male guardian. This makes them completely dependent on the men in the family and raises questions about women's autonomy and equality in this country. One of the most shocking and heartbreaking things is that when a woman is harassed, if she is not accompanied by a mahram, she is not only not protected, but can also be charged or punished more severely than the perpetrator. This is a cruel paradox where the victim is punished instead of protected. However, under pressure from international human rights organizations, the Saudi Arabian government has begun to consider relaxing some regulations, such as allowing women to travel without the consent of a guardian. However, this has met with strong opposition from conservative clerics, and to this day, the future of women in Saudi Arabia remains unstable and a major question mark over human rights. Number 14. Using your phone will be monitored. Imagine every time you touch your phone or any app you use being monitored. It feels suffocating, right? But for Saudi Arabian women, this is the reality they face every day. This monitoring system seriously violates their privacy, turning every little corner of their personal lives into something controlled. They cannot freely express their thoughts, connect with the world, or even do simple things that we take for granted. Not only that, this surveillance is also a tool for men to impose power. Just accessing an unauthorized website, sending inappropriate messages, or using a banned app, women can be severely punished. These punishments can sometimes even lead to detention. This is a major barrier for women in this country to progress and gender equality in society. It is time for drastic changes in laws and awareness to protect the legitimate rights of women here, giving them the opportunity to live a truly meaningful life with the freedom they deserve. Number 13. Don't touch your husband's phone. In many Arab countries, especially Saudi Arabia, one of the surprising and unbelievable things is that women are not only closely monitored, but can also be severely punished if they do things that many people consider normal in marital relationships elsewhere. One of the strictly forbidden actions is checking the phone of a husband or male family member. According to Saudi Arabian law, if a woman checks her husband's phone without his consent, it can be considered an invasion of another person's privacy. This can lead to terrible consequences such as fines, administrative charges, and even prison sentences. Meanwhile, men are not punished for monitoring or checking the phones or activities of women. This is one of the injustices in the legal system of Arab countries, where women's freedom is almost completely controlled by the men in the family. A shocking story about this inequality occurred in the United Arab Emirates in 2016. A woman was fined $41,000 and deported from the country for checking her husband's phone. She suspected her husband of having an affair and decided to secretly look into his phone, even transferring the pictures from his phone to her own. When this action was discovered, the husband reported the case to the police, and the case was brought to court. The court found her guilty of violating her husband's privacy, fined her a huge amount of money, and deported her from the country as well. While this is an act that many women in other countries might consider a normal concern in a relationship, in the UAE it is considered illegal and can have serious consequences. It is worth noting that in these countries, women are not only limited in their privacy, but also subjected to control from all sides. The fact that social and legal institutions protect the rights of men but deprive women of their personal freedom clearly shows the injustice and gender discrimination existing in the legal systems of these countries. The story of the woman in the UAE also highlights the fact that an act that in other countries might be considered a normal part of married life becomes a serious crime in the eyes of the law in Arab countries. This is a clear example of the oppression that women have to endure, not only legally but also socially. Basic rights such as privacy, personal freedom, and respect in marriage are all taken away, leaving women as citizens with limited rights and unable to protect themselves. This story is not only a warning about the inequality in Arab society, but also reflects the need for changes in social and legal attitudes towards women's rights. Inequality does not stop at regulations, but is deeply rooted in customs, social values, and people's attitudes towards women. While society is developing and seeing many positive changes in many parts of the world, in these countries, women still have to fight every day to regain their basic rights and personal freedoms. Number 12. Adultery becomes a right for Saudi men. In Saudi Arabia, one of the most frustrating things is the protection men receive while women are deprived of basic rights. Not only are they allowed to commit adultery without being punished, men here can also take advantage of a special form of marriage called to satisfy their personal needs without having to bear any responsibility. Also known as non-binding marriage, is a special form of marriage in Saudi Arabia. In this marriage, the wife does not enjoy all the benefits of a normal marriage, such as living together or receiving financial support from her husband. This type of marriage can be considered a loose combination of marriage and celibacy, allowing the husband to maintain an extramarital relationship without having to face the responsibility of raising a second family. This leaves many Arab women feeling exploited, as they accept an ambiguous relationship without any protection of their rights. Although the risk of abuse in a marriage is very high, it still attracts some women who do not want to accept the rules and traditions of a normal marriage. In particular, older or widowed women may choose this form as a way to find a partner without having to endure traditional family pressures. However, the price to pay is not small. Such relationships are often not sustainable, with the majority ending in a short period of time, after only a few months or even weeks. In fact, children born from marriages are not recognized by their fathers and suffer from both emotional and rights deprivation just because of a relationship that is not legally binding. These children have to live in a state considered unofficial, with very few legal rights. They have no inheritance rights, do not receive adequate care from their fathers, and often face social stigma. Therefore, although marriage may bring convenience to men, it is a big shock to women and children in the Saudi social system. Meanwhile, women's rights organizations are still fighting to change this situation. They want to protect the rights of women who are not officially recognized by the law and promote fairness in marriage and family relationships. But change is very slow, and women who have to endure these cruel regulations still have no chance to seek justice in life. Relationships like marriage are not only part of the problem of women's rights in Saudi Arabia, they also reflect a deep inequality in society, where men are still protected and exempted from many responsibilities. This prevents Arab women from living the free life they deserve. Number 11. Arranged marriages. If you think choosing your life partner is a basic human right, then for Arab girls, this may just be a distant dream. Many of them are forced to marry strangers they have never met simply because it is the decision of their parents. In fact, about half of all marriages in Arabia are still arranged. Once the parents have decided, the girls have little right to refuse, no matter how they feel. The origin of this arranged marriage is rooted in cultural and religious traditions, with the belief that it will preserve family harmony and traditional values. But in return, women have to sacrifice their freedom of choice and decide their own fate. Another more worrying issue is early marriage, often before the age of 20. This not only limits educational and career opportunities, but also increases the risk of poor reproductive health and domestic violence. Young girls are forced to grow up too early in an environment that lacks support and freedom. However, there is a glimmer of hope. More and more Arab women are speaking out, demanding the freedom to choose their partners and marry at a more appropriate age. Gender equality movements are making efforts to change the law, raise awareness of the importance of self-determination, and encourage societies to respect women's opinions on important issues in their lives. Change may be slow, but every voice raised is a step closer to freedom for Arab girls. Number 10. Strict dress code. The image of Saudi girls only revealing their eyes when going out has probably made many people curious. How do they endure the constraints of such tight outfits, especially in the scorching heat of the desert? The long black, covering from head to toe, is not only a rule but also an indispensable part of the Islamic culture in Saudi Arabia. In addition to the, women often wrap their headscarves to cover their hair and neck, and in many places they also cover their faces with. This applies not only to local women but also to female tourists when visiting this country. For some women, wearing an is a way to show respect for beliefs and traditions. They see it as a symbol of modesty and privacy. But for others, this outfit brings constraints, inconveniences, and is a barrier in daily life. However, things do not completely disappear. In recent years, women have had more freedom to choose the color and style of the. Many are no longer required to cover their faces, and strict regulations are gradually being relaxed. Reviews on this traditional dress are mixed. Some women feel proud because it helps preserve cultural identity, but others hope for more radical change. Regardless, there remains an inseparable symbol of the image of the Arab woman and her unique cultural story. Number 9. The world's craziest divorce law. In many places, custody of children usually belongs to the mother after divorce, but in Saudi Arabia, women do not have that privilege. According to regulations, they can only raise sons until the age of 7 and daughters until the age of 9. After that, the right to care for the children will be transferred to the father or male guardian. For mothers, being separated from their children is an indescribable pain, causing deep mental trauma for both mother and child. Children who are separated from their mothers at a very young age may have difficulty in psychological and emotional development. In some cases, transferring children to fathers or male guardians also leads to the risk of neglect or lack of necessary care for the children. Although there have been changes in Saudi Arabian law, such as allowing women to divorce without their husband's consent since 2019, child custody after divorce remains a major issue. These changes give women hope in having more autonomy in their post-marital decisions, but are not enough to completely address the injustices related to child custody. To improve the situation further, adjustments in the law are needed to protect the interests of both women and children after divorce. Child custody is not only a legal issue, but also an important factor in ensuring a stable and safe environment for children. Hopefully, with future changes, Arab women will be more empowered to build a new life with their children, full of love and protection. Number 8. Women cannot drive. Driving is a skill that seems like anyone can do if they want to, but for Arab women, this was unthinkable until a few years ago. For decades, they were banned from driving. A ban that not only limited their freedom of movement but also symbolized deep gender inequality. This ban was justified by cultural views, religious interpretations, and strict male control in society. Saudi Arabia was the only country in the world that maintained this ban until 2018. Women here were not only prevented by law but also faced heavy social prejudice if they dared to dream of driving. But all that changed thanks to persistent struggle. Women's rights activists continuously spoke out, organized protests, and used social media to protest the ban. The most important milestone came in 2017 when Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman announced that he would lift the ban as part of his reform program. By June 2018, Saudi women were legally allowed to drive for the first time, marking a historic turning point. However, the right to drive is just the beginning. Women here still face other barriers in their quest for equality, from discrimination in education and career opportunities to self-determination in many other areas of life. Despite this change has opened up new hope, encouraging Arab women to continue their journey to demand the rights they deserve. Number 7. Breastfeeding is a must. The milk powder industry is increasingly growing, and many mothers around the world choose not to breastfeed for personal or situational reasons. However, in Arabia, this is not so simple. Unless the mother has a health problem or does not have enough milk, women here are forced to breastfeed or face serious consequences. Deeply influenced by tradition and religion, breastfeeding is considered the sacred duty of mothers, not only for health reasons but also to maintain the development of the child. But this creates a lot of pressure on women. Those who cannot or do not want to breastfeed are often stigmatized, not only by their families but also by society. In more serious cases, some women may face penalties or legal trouble. This creates an environment of stress, coercion, a lack of community support, and a negative impact on their mental and physical health. However, today, many Arab women are standing up against this injustice. They are fighting for the freedom to choose how to raise their children without being forced by society. Feminist movements have been spreading, calling for changes in social awareness and legal policies. Women are sharing personal stories, organizing workshops and seminars, and leveraging social media to raise awareness of their rights. There is also no shortage of help from NGOs and international organizations providing counseling, education, and legal support. They help women become more aware of their rights and how to protect them. However, changing a deeply ingrained concept in Muslim society is a huge challenge. Number 6. No freedom of religion. Do you have the courage to stand up to Muslims and say that you do not believe in Islam even if you are a foreigner? This can be very difficult, so do not be surprised that Saudi women are always Muslim because they simply have no other choice. In many Muslim countries, especially in Saudi Arabia, women's freedom of religion is severely restricted. The law does not recognize any religion other than Islam, and renunciation of Islam can lead to very severe penalties. This makes it impossible for women to freely choose their religion. They must comply with social rules and pressures. Number 5. No public transport. If you cannot drive, you would easily choose public transport. However, for women in Saudi Arabia, this is not so simple. Women in Saudi Arabia have long faced discrimination in many areas, especially when using public transport. In many cases, they are not allowed to use these means of transport like men. If they want to take the train, women are only allowed to sit in the last carriage, a clear form of gender discrimination. Most bus companies here also restrict or refuse to serve women. This makes it difficult for women to travel and affects their ability to participate in social and economic activities. Although the Saudi government has made positive changes such as allowing women to drive since 2018, the number of women who actually enjoy these rights is still very small. Even princesses in Saudi Arabia, despite their high status in society, are not free from gender discrimination. They still have to follow strict rules and suffer the same restrictions as other women in society. Number 4. Restrictions on work and education. Not only are there strict rules about dress and behavior, but even basic rights such as the right to study and work are a luxury for many girls in Saudi Arabia. Women in Saudi Arabia can go to school but still face many restrictions. Although the proportion of women with university degrees in the country is higher than that of men, the quality of education in schools for women is still low. With the consent of their guardians, they can study abroad, but the opportunities for scholarships are very limited. Most women have degrees in fields such as education or science, but the opportunities for finding suitable jobs are very limited. Despite reforms and the lifting of bans, the rate of female participation in the workforce is only about 17.7%. The majority of women here still stay at home and take care of children. If they want to work, they need the consent of the men in the family and must ensure that the work does not affect their family responsibilities. In fact, the work they can do is often limited and requires little contact with men. Because of this, it is difficult for women in Saudi Arabia to be independent and speak up for their rights when they have to depend on the men in the family to live and work. Number 3. Saudi women have no chance to exercise. Women in Saudi Arabia often face harsh regulations, especially when it comes to health and fitness. While they can diet, obesity rates are high, and few are interested in exercising. In cities like Riyadh, there are no public spaces for women to exercise outdoors, making it difficult for those who want to maintain a healthy lifestyle. There is no law prohibiting women from exercising outdoors, but many scholars and clerics strongly oppose it. They believe that women walking or exercising in public can be immoral. This has led to many women like R. Al Abdullah facing harassment from the religious police for simply walking around in their long robes. Hotel gyms and swimming pools are also not an option for women, as these facilities are often closed to them. Many women feel restricted in their ability to take care of their health, and some are even threatened when they want to exercise in public. One reason for this restriction is religious beliefs, as noted by Muhammad al-Habdan, who asserted that female students in gym class would lose their dignity because they had to change clothes with their classmates. He also argued that women participating in public gymnastics would make them tools for seducing men, which would destroy morality and the purity of society. However, this situation is slowly changing. Women in Saudi Arabia are fighting to exercise freely outdoors without being judged or banned. The government has started to recognize the importance of changing these beliefs in order to encourage women to participate in sports activities and improve their health. But this is not easy, as many still hold the view that women's fitness and freedom will lead to social decline. Number 2, no inheritance. In many Arab countries, women's inheritance rights are often not recognized the same way as men's. This is a result of Sharia law, long-standing cultural traditions, and patriarchal systems. According to Sharia rules, sons often receive double the share of property than daughters, and women are also restricted from inheriting certain types of property, such as land. The idea behind these regulations is that men are responsible for the financial well-being of their families, so they need to have larger assets. However, the reality is far from the theory. Many Arab women not only help financially but are also very financially independent. They engage in business, own property, and contribute significantly to their families. This injustice has made it difficult for many women to own property, especially after divorce or when their husbands die. They often fall into financial hardship because they do not receive their fair share of the property, making them vulnerable and unable to have autonomy in their lives. However, not all Arab countries maintain these regulations. Some have begun to implement reforms to give women equal inheritance rights to men. For example, in 2017, Tunisia enacted a law allowing women to inherit equally to men, opening up hope for a more equitable future for women in the region. Number 1. The silent struggle for freedom inside Arab society. Beneath the facade of a modern Arab society, the fight for women's freedom continues silently. Despite positive reforms in recent years, Arab women still face many difficulties and injustices in important areas of life. Their freedom to move, study, and work is often limited by strict regulations and traditional social norms. Meanwhile, gender discrimination in the legal system, education, and the labor market remains widespread. Issues such as domestic violence and early marriage continue to directly affect the lives and futures of many women. However, amid these challenges, Arab women continue to fight. They are taking advantage of social media platforms to connect, share information, and spread movements for their rights without hesitating to speak out. They have been challenging social stereotypes and fighting for gender equality. Protests, campaigns, and creativity in art, music, and literature are becoming powerful tools to convey messages of change. The struggle of Arab women is not easy and will continue to be difficult, but with perseverance and courage, they are breaking down barriers, creating opportunities, and hope for a fairer future for themselves and future generations. So, we have discovered together 15 interesting things about the lives of women in Saudi Arabia. Each piece of information brings new perspectives, from strict regulations to remarkable changes in society. Hopefully, through this video you have gained deeper insight into a part of the world that is still unknown. If you found this video interesting and useful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel to always follow the latest videos. Thank you for taking the time to watch, and see you in the next video.